And first action item, we need to vote to approve the agenda for today, which is on your screen and was sent out via email as well. So do we have a motion to approve today's agenda?
I move to approve today's agenda.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it. This is Meredith.
Meredith, thank you. So let's vote to approve today's agenda. Do we have anyone against? Since that seems to be the easiest way to do it. Okay, then the agenda for today is approved. The next thing we need to do is vote to approve our minutes from both our November meeting and our January meeting. Both of which were sent out via email as well. So we are missing a little bit of information from our January meeting, but I'd say let's just go ahead and approve that as well. Does anyone have a problem with that?
No.
Okay, then motion to approve our meeting minutes from November 18th, 2020 and January 6th, 2021. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second. Darlene.
Darlene, thank you. And then let's vote to approve those minutes. Is there anyone against? Okay, then motion passes.
Second, Laura, Jenny.
Okay, so then I think we voted and those meeting minutes are approved. So moving on to our informational items, just want to remind you again of our board communication norms and our meeting norms. Those are listed on the second page of this agenda. Scroll quickly. So silence and turn off phones, come prepared, be on time, communicate, participate in a positive manner, be respectful of others' opinions and viewpoints, and work for the benefit of all Roswell High School stakeholders. So just a reminder as we begin this meeting. And next is public comment. Dr. Shaw, do you have anything in your form?
Nothing to read. No, ma'am. It's a 0. So we can see if anybody on the call, I guess, wants to share.
Are there any guests who would like to comment? Okay, I'll take that as a no. And then we're moving right along. So our next informational item is our student update. So Haley, anything that you have to share?
Not really. We are just in the process of getting things together for end of year, like senior activities, senior picnic. Like we're trying to do a spirit week before spring break. Like we're just trying to do some things spirit wise for the class as the year kind of progresses and ends. So nothing really going on. We're just trying to figure out what the best course of action will be, considering COVID numbers and a lot of those determinations we can't really make right now, just because it's a little early. But yeah, I think that's all that we have going on. I've been getting a lot of questions about prom, about whether or not like there's going to be one, but we're going to try to push for one. We're going to try to plan one as much as and do it as normally as we can under the circumstances at the time. But that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah, that's really all I have. If anyone has any questions about any of those things.
Okay, then thank you. And so moving on to principal update and Dr. Shaw. And I think the main thing we're going to cover right now is the budget presentation, and he wants to wait on the mission and vision presentation, our portion of that, until later. So
sure.
Dr. Shaw,
so,
yeah,
I'm good to go. I'll need to share my screen. So just to go back to what Ms. Hunter said, the mission and vision stuff I want to talk about, but it just seemed to make sense that we do budget and then talk about flex funds. So, all right, let me see if I can do this real quick. Okay. Can you see that? Yes?
Mhm.
All right, great. All right, well, thank you, everybody. This is one of the big jobs of the year for this group. So what I endeavor to do every year is keep you all informed and be transparent and go through where we are in terms of our budget. So hopefully, you know, if you could indulge me, just hold your questions. I can't see the chat right now, but let me go through this and then any questions you have. And I want to thank everybody who helped get to this point. And there's a lot, believe it or not. So what are our budget goals? First of all, we want to make sure, and I won't read this to you, but first of all, we want to make sure that we're using the resources entrusted to us as they are intended. We say a lot that we spend this year's money on this year's kids. Support the goals in the strategic plan, which, you know, that is another main focus of the Governance Council. Support a student-centered culture with a focus on academic success. Now, a little more tangibly about what goals are, when we talk about, I mean, let's be honest, when we talk about teacher positions, my goal has always been to protect class sizes in the core subject areas, and within that, the end of course and AP courses. And then a lot of our strategic plan is built around informing and engaging and including every member of our community. So that's something that we took into consideration as we put this budget together. So this is our strategic plan, of course, and you know, we haven't referenced back to it in a while, but as I went through the budget, I really pulled this up and continued to look at it and reminded myself of our goal for our graduation rate, our college and career readiness, increase the percentage of employees who would recommend RHS as a place to work, family engagement, partnership. So it was important to talk through that. So what is the timeline? Well, met with the subcommittee the other day. This, of course, is due to the district by March 12th. Today on the 24th, we'll go ahead and submit it for your approval. One of the things that has changed is it used to be that principals could get in June and make changes, but they've taken that away. So basically what we submit right now is locked in until July 1st. That's when the new fiscal year begins. Again, I want to thank the members of the budget subcommittee. The district is always helpful. I will give her a public shout out. There's a woman in the budget office named Tracy Watson who is just awesome to work with, and she's very responsive. Our school cap is our curriculum assistant principal. That's Mr. Martin. Ms. Ponder helped, of course. My assistant superintendent, Ms. Munker, our bookkeeper, can't forget her. So it's been a process, but I feel we've gotten to a good place, which I hope you will agree with. What are some of the challenges? Well, there's some big ones. One is that enrollment throughout the district has dropped, and I think it's important to mention here that our funds are, as a district and as a school, are based on how many kids show up. Now, there's some exceptions, special ed, for example, gifted, but for the most part, the more kids we have, the more money we get. The more money we get, the more positions we have, the more things we can do. Conversely, when we lose students, we lose money, and that's the situation that we're in as a district and as a school. So keep that in mind as we go through this. What was shared with principals is that the district's anticipating a loss of $40 million in state revenue. For us, I'll show you the numbers in just a second, of course, but we've suffered an enrollment loss for some reasons. I think COVID has something to do with it. I think we're always in competition, which I've talked about with our staff and with this group. So we're always in competition with private schools and other public schools. But two new things this year that's happened is the district has opened a new STEM school in North Fulton, and there's a new online school. So both of those, we know that we've lost students to those as well. Keep in mind that projections are a best guess. So what happens, in case you don't know the process, is usually right before the holidays, the district looks at our entire community and tells us, here's the amount of students we think you'll get, and that's the number the budget is built on. What really locks in the budget is what we call the 10-day count. And the teachers know that we're always, especially those first 2 weeks of school, talking about please take attendance, please let us know how many students are there, because that number we submit for our 10-day count will determine what our funding looks like for the year. And, you know, into that first month of school, and this will come up in a second, if we lose students or have less than is projected, we have to give positions or money back to the district. Again, if we gain students, so our projected count is higher, we gain money and we gain positions. So that 10-day count is very important to setting the budget for the entire school year. So this is what it looks like. I did a little comparison at the top between last year and this year. Last year, we had a budget of almost $17 million with a projected enrollment of 2249. This year, it's dropped 63 students, so of course our budget dropped as well. You can see right here. So enrollment was 63 positions, 63 students, excuse me. As far as Gen Ed, that's a loss of 1.5 teachers. There's also some teachers that are in different categories on how they're funded. Remedial, these are teaching positions that are used to help students to catch up, as the case may be. I mean, we use them throughout the building, mostly in math, actually. But we lost one of those, and then we also lost a tag position. Now, tag is talented and gifted, and we lost one of those. And when we asked, the reasoning is because some of our tag students have elected to go to the North Fulton STEM Academy. So we went from 7 positions to 6.5. And you can also see, along with that, the pure pupil allocation, those dollars dropped as well. So that was the challenge that we faced, is doing more with less, as many businesses and people are doing these days. This is just a visual breakdown, like every business, I guess, that's out there, is most of our costs are in personnel. Again, with the goal being to keep class sizes and offerings and electives. You know, last year I went back and looked, and we had about 95% of our budget in personnel. This year that's up a little bit. It's actually 96.9. But that makes sense because we've tried to save positions to keep class sizes down and to keep our elective offerings. You know, I will tell you, having been through this process many times, that when you lose positions, right, if you want to protect your end of course, your core, your end of course, and your AP, then when you lose positions, what does go on the chopping block? And sometimes it is your elective courses. It is, unfortunately, fine arts. It is career tech. Those are the places where you look. But we've been able to save almost all of our positions. So I'll talk through more of that in just a second. This is the breakdown of basically where things went, and I won't go through all of it with you, but as I said, almost 97% is salaries and benefits. Professional and technical services, a large chunk of that money is our custodial contract. And for those of you who are new, we have 9 custodial allotments. So for a grand total of 11, we have 9 what we call custodian 3s. We only keep 3 of them. We take those 6, give them back to the district, and then use that money to outsource the custodial jobs. The night custodial crew is paid for out of that money. They're not Fulton County employees. It does save us some money in the long run to do that, so we've continued to do that for next year. Supplies and materials, that number seems a little bit high because there's a teaching position buried in there, which I'll explain in just a second. Field trips and travel is down for obvious reasons. Other purchase services, a big chunk of this is our copier lease, which from memory is about $35,000. So all of that is in there as well. This is just a breakdown of our teaching positions. You know, I hadn't done this before, but I thought since we're talking about saving positions, this may have been something that's interest to the community as a whole. We earn general ed positions of 79. We use 79.5. The district gives us a position paid for by them that must be used for world language. So that 0.5 right there, that is being used in French. We've earned 5 ESOL positions. So Lindsay's, that's her department. Those 5 teachers are back. We earned 1.2 remedial. Again, that's a reduction of a teacher, but we're using all 1.2. Tag 6.5. CTAE is our career tech teacher. So we have 5 positions. We also have a few career tech positions that come out of our general ed allotment, but the county gives us 5, and then we add to that as well. We have a teacher who works with CTAE as a unit. We have 2 ROTC instructors. A couple years ago, the district started giving us an AVID position, so we're using that in social studies this year. The responsibilities of this teacher, besides teaching, this is a teacher who still teaches social studies. This teacher also recruits for the program, collects data, visits the AVID classes, will work with the middle schools, so that's why that position is separate. Special education IRR, we have 19 teachers. Special education CBI, those students here on the H-Hall, those are 5. The counselor, we have 5 that are earned, but we have 6. And I really want to thank the district because they are paying for that 6th counselor this year. And you'll see that in just a second. If they weren't doing that, we would have taken a hit in some teaching positions like I talked about earlier. So I really appreciate the district picking up that cost. In a normal year, running a school with 5 counselors would be impossible when you include everything with remote learning and attendance and some of the needs. Remember, we did signs of suicide for the entire school this year, which we've never done before. The counselors did a great job. So I don't know how we would do it with 5 counselors. Certainly We do need that 6. RTI SST, this is a separate position the county gave us last year. This is somebody whose job it is to solely work with kids who are at risk, and the person who's doing this is doing a great job. Matter of fact, before COVID, she had put in a pretty good plan working with all of us to use our study hall differently, but COVID kind of blew it up. We'll talk more about that in a minute. A MEDI is a fancy way of saying media specialist, and we have a grad coach. So those are our faculty positions. Our staffing positions, everything here, we'll go through the list with you. You can see the custodial thing I talked about. A couple things, PA2, we earned 4, but we only used through 3.6. So where did that other 4/10 go? I'll tell you in just a second. One of the things that the Governance Council, if I remember correctly, actually paid for this a few years ago. Having 2 bilingual parent liaisons has been a godsend for us. We're able to send things out in Spanish where we weren't able to before, especially with COVID and so many students on remote learning. Both of them working together have been able to make communications and relationships with more families. So it's been great. They also work a little slightly different hours. One of them comes in pretty early, about 7:30, and one of them stays pretty late till about 5 or 6 o'clock. So that helps really meet those needs. I already talked about the custodian position and the registrar position. And for those of you who are veterans to this, you may remember. So what I did is I took what I didn't use for the PA2 and I put it towards the registrar. So why is the registrar important? Because the registrar position, that person works more days during the school year. This is the person whose responsibility is, among other things, is to track down the paper chase for our graduation rate. So if Haley Newton decides, I know she won't, and I know her mom, so this would never happen, but if she decides she's going to drop out, the registrar's job is to make sure that they meet with me, that we follow the protocols, that we have a meeting, that we make sure that we've done everything we can do, if possible, to keep that student in school. The other thing she does is when a student does go to another school, she makes sure that we have that enrollment paperwork from the other school so that it doesn't count as a dropout. So that position goes directly to our strategic plan, directly to our graduation rate. So I'm glad we were able to continue purchasing that position. So again, this is the money that we spent over and above what was allotted to us. Again, the bilingual liaison was $40,000. That counselor was $103,000. Again, the district is paying that. The PA 2.6, $29,000. The RTI. So the person, we got the 0.5 RTI for that person who supports our kids who are at risk. I purchased a 0.5 to make it a full position. This person also does 504s, and we have almost 200 in this building. So that's a large chunk of her time as well. I already talked about the registrar. The last position here I would tell you that I would get back to. The district has required us to hold back a teaching position. The fear is that if enrollment really does come in very low, that they don't want to lose a person. They don't want to lose an actual human. So they've asked us to hold back the cost of a teacher. So we have $89,000 back in one of those accounts that I referenced earlier. And if our enrollment is so low that we lose a teacher, we won't lose a person. We'll just give them that $89,000. On the other side of that, if our enrollment is where we projected or even higher, then that $89,000 will be ours to use next year. So that's the reserve position. So really, when you say we lost 1.5 gen ed, we really lost 2.5, because this reserve position is money that could be a teacher that we've been forced to put aside. And I shouldn't say forced. I agree. I understand. I would rather give them $89,000 than have to reassign a teacher. So, and again, if you have some questions, I certainly hope you're making some notes, and I'll go back to it. This is where we made some cuts this year, just so you know. Again, if our priority was to protect class sizes, elective offerings, this is something had to give. So for example, postage, right? We went from 7,500 to 0. Well, we'll probably mail things, but we'll just take that out of what we call local dollars. That's vending, Coca-Cola, extras from pictures, things like that. So other revenue that we raise in the building, we'll just use that money for things like postage. And this is where Verinda really put on her thinking cap. We told the department chairs that we have cut, what they're going to get every year. So for example, math classroom supplies, we took back $1,200. And again, I also told the department chairs, if there's something you need, we will find a way to get it for you. But this is where we were able to make up the difference and save some of our positions. Why is the reserve so high? Again, that's where that teaching position is sitting. And then the other thing is I wanted to point out is tuition. Now, what is tuition? Tuition is over and above a certain amount we have to pay for students that do Georgia Virtual or Fulton Virtual. So I think the district gives us $200. position, 200 slots for students, 200 classes, I should say. Anything over that, we have to pay. And it averages about $20,000 a semester. We really increased that amount because we think that there'll be more kids doing that next year. But by the way, parents, when we say we're only limiting you to 3 and we're not letting you make a bunch of changes, this is one of the reasons why, is because we budget a certain amount. So the more kids who take those classes, the more that comes out of the more that we have to pay. So that's, you can see the parentheses indicates an area where we reduced some money. And some of it made sense, right? Like travel. Very many people traveling out of system. So we knocked that back. So what are some considerations moving forward is the 10-day count. Already talked about that. We are allowed to roll over 10% of our money from this year to next year. So that will really help us. We don't know what that number will be yet. We're still, Verinda and I meet once a month and we look at where we are. So if we have 11%, the district takes that 10%, that 1%, and we keep the 10. So we're trying to spend, and those of you who have worked in government, it's a little counterintuitive, but you want to spend your money so you don't lose it. We don't want to spend it frivolously. We've met with the department chairs and we're looking at things that we may need for next year, especially equipment, printers, capital things for kids. So we're working through that now. And that's something that has to be done by the end of March. If enrollment does not decrease, we can spend those reserve funds. And I already mentioned using local dollars to support non-personnel gaps in cost center. So that was a lot thrown at you real quick. And listen, I say this every year. If you don't feel like you're in a position where you can approve this, I respect that. Let me know what I need to go back and get some more information or fix. But like I said, I'm proud of the work we've done. We're doing more with less, and there's going to be some cuts in some areas, but I think we've aligned to the priorities of our strategic plan and our school. So I will stop talking and then ask you for any questions you may have. I didn't do that good a job. Surely, maybe somebody's on mute. Surely there's got to be a question.
I thought you did a great job.
No, thanks. I appreciate it. Who was that? I can't see.
It's Meredith.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Well, thank you. All right. Well, with that being said, Ms. Hunter, I'm done. I believe we do have, once you guys agree to vote and approve the budget, we do have this certificate that we sign off on. We can do it electronically, and it's both. It's all three of us actually. It's me, it's Ms. Hunter, and then it's Ms. Trigg, I think, who's the head of the subcommittee or the budget committee. So, with that being said, I'm good to go. So, Ms. Hunter, I'll turn it back over to you, and I will unshare my screen.
Okay. So I'm hearing an echo. Okay, I think it's gone. So to go along with the budget discussion, what we have then as the school governance is what they're calling this year charter dollars, the money that they gave us through the charter system that we have to help support the strategic plan. And so we still need to discuss how we want to spend that money for this year.
Hey, Ms. Hunter, can I make a suggestion, and I'll leave it up to you. Can we go ahead, just so we don't confuse the two, because we're not, because those are separate votes. If you feel comfortable and if you want to wait, that's fine. Can we vote on the budget first and then put that aside, or would you rather wait and do it all, both votes at the end?
Sorry, no, I just forgot to put in that we have to actually vote for the budget.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. Somebody's got to make a motion.
And moving on to the next thing. So do we have a motion to approve the budget that Dr. Shaw has presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, and that was
Darlene.
Darlene. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, that was Dylan. And so let's vote on the motion to approve the budget from that Dr. Shaw has presented for next school year. Anyone against? Okay, then the budget is approved, and Dr. Shaw and I will make sure that whatever correct form gets filled out that needs to get filled out. And I think they do want us to do it online electronically, so I have that pulled up, and I'll figure out exactly what we need.
I didn't know that. I'm glad, because I was trying to figure out how to get this paper to everybody. So that's perfect. Great. Good.
And actually, I think it just gives my signature too. So
notice I put Roswell in green, so let's make sure we keep that going.
I don't think that allows us to do that. It's not a nice pretty certificate. Okay, so then we've approved that budget. That's a separate thing. What we need to move into is the charter dollars and what we want to do with that. So We did try and go through the process to ask for suggestions from the community, and we didn't get a whole lot of feedback. But as we've been discussing in the past few meetings, there are some other things that have come up that we are somewhat interested in. Just a sec, let me see if I can approve. And then the Finance Committee met with Dr. Shaw on Monday as well to kind of go through what some of our options are. So that was one of those documents that I sent you. Actually, before I do that, let's pull up the document with what we've spent. Oh shoot, I just shared the wrong thing. Just a sec. The summary of what we've done in the past few years, if I can find that one. Oh, I do have it open. Okay. Okay, so that's pulled up. So on the left side, that is everything that has been awarded, divided by year. And then, so what was actually spent. And then the right side kind of breaks it down a little bit more as far as what was left and then what actually ended up getting spent each year. So you'll see that we had remaining last year $60,000 left. And then we were awarded another $30,000. We spent some of that money on things that were voted on last year as far as stadium cleanup and some general cleanup around the school building, and then some translation headsets that were actually voted on in, I think, 2018. So that has finally been spent. And so basically what we have right now is $57,000 to spend, and it needs to be spent by the end of the year. None of it will carry on. So that leads into then the suggestions that the Finance Committee came up with. So let me now switch over to that document. Okay. So the first one is to basically reimburse the school budget for this year for math trailer courses. And these are the courses for where students who failed first semester are able to go back second semester and retake the course during the class day, and so that they won't be behind. So the thing about this is it doesn't apply to our kind of goal that we have for this year as far as incompletes, but it still falls under that category of the pillar of our strategic plan for student achievement. So that is one thing that we were looking at. I guess, actually, let's talk about that one and vote on that one, and then we can move on to the other ones. The cost of that is $26,190.16. Do we have questions or comments or thoughts about this proposal? Anyone?
I can't imagine if we didn't have it, so I think it I think it's just has to be there.
Yeah, and I mean, for the most part, they're already going on. The fact is since we have that money, we can pay for it, and it's money for the actual school budget to go towards other things and to give us some more reserve for next year. So if there's no questions or comments of that, I would vote, I would say motion to, or do we have a motion to reimburse the school for the math trailer courses for $26,000 and $26,190.16?
A motion.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, who was the motion and who was the second? I don't see everybody.
Val was the first.
And Ponick is the second.
Thank you.
Okay, then let's vote. Is there anyone against the voting to spend our charter dollars for reimbursing the school budget for math trailer courses? Okay, then that passes, and we will fill out the form to reimburse the school for that money. So that is our first expense. So that would leave us with about $30,000 left, essentially. So basically the money we were given for this year. So our second thing is the one that we've really been talking about, is what can we do for incompletes? And we ran into a lot of roadblocks as far as kind of our original idea and paying teachers to work directly with those in their off hours. What the district will allow us to do is to supplement the current extended learning budget for those teachers that are specifically working for clearing incompletes from last semester. So as of right now, it is 8 teachers, and they're limited to, I believe it's 3.5 hours a week. And so if we reimburse, or excuse me, not reimburse, if we vote to extend that money, then that would allow for either more teachers to work with those students, or for the teachers who are working with them to be paid for more hours a week. So the other question is, if we choose to do this, is how much money do we want to allocate? And I think originally, I'm not sure I wrote it down. Whoever else was in that meeting might remember, on Monday I think they were originally given around $8,000. Does that sound about right? Dr. Shaw, do you remember what Brenda said?
Yes, that sounds about right.
Okay.
She's next door. I can grab her if we have a specific question.
Okay, I think it was she was looking at a couple of different funds, but it was somewhere around $8,000 to $10,000.
Hang on, I'll grab her.
I
Okay.
think it was $8,011,
Okay.
if that number's right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Okay, wait, I have 8,000 written somewhere in my notes. So I'm assuming, but it was definitely within that range. So if we wanted
Okay,
to.
I have Brenda. She can
you do?
answer. She's my guest, I guess.
Hi. Hi, Brenda, do you remember how much money we said originally was allocated towards that extended learning program?
Yeah, I think it was like 7,900 or
Yeah, it's
something
about
like
almost
that.
8. Yeah, it was about
Okay.
8,000.
So about $8,000. So if we want to extend that money, we can decide how much. We have about $30,000. I'm not sure that would necessarily all be able to go to that, or even necessarily all be able to be used this year. So we might be looking more in the like $10,000 to $15,000 range. Does anyone have thoughts on this, either in the amount we would want, or if this sounds like it's doing what we wanted to do and our goal for the year, or et cetera? Or do you have questions about what I mean by any of this?
So
Well,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, real quick, I apologize. Brenda just reminded me that, if we don't spend it, then we have to come up with a plan to spend it or we lose it. So, the more you put in there, if it doesn't get spent, then we're back at the table here in 2 months trying to figure out what to do with it, if that makes sense.
I have a question. I think, Ms. Hunter, you were going to get some feedback from the teachers that are participating in providing the extended learning. Were you able to touch base with anyone?
I tried a little bit and I didn't get, I just didn't have a chance to follow up with it, to tell you the truth, in the last 2 days. Though I think one was on this meeting. I think she left. So she really referred me to Sagana or to our graduation coach. And then I just didn't have a chance to reach out to them as well.
I'm not sure if I asked this on Monday or not. Is it possible to have more teachers, or we want to keep the same 8 teachers and just allow them more time per week?
I'm not completely sure. Dr. Shaw, was there a limit from the county as to how many teachers could be paid, or?
No, there wasn't a limit, but Sagana told me that, we how can I say this diplomatically? People weren't falling all over themselves to do it, even with the dollars. So, yeah.
So what
an increase?
Are kids there? Like, what are kids coming to this? Do we need more teachers? Do we need more? Would it be more effective if the same kids were coming for more hours, or do we need
The feedback I got, and I don't remember who told me this, was that yes, the kids are coming and they could use more time to serve more kids. That's the feedback I got. I thought Val Pettit was doing this. Am I wrong, Val? Were you not doing this, or have you done it in
No,
the past or something?
I'm doing extended learning through the county,
Through
through
the county, okay.
Ingenuity.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're doing the Edgenuity one.
Mhm.
Okay.
But I'm sitting here thinking about all of this, and I think my heart rate's going up. Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't the next 3 years going to be really super rough? Dr. Shaw?
As far as
Well, I never want to approach things with the glass half empty. About.
Me either. Okay.
I mean, I was going to, that's actually one of the things I want to talk about today is, yes, we're going to have some real challenges. We can say
our glass is going to be bigger, so it's going to take more to fill it.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
So, like, to the question, like, is it kids who could stay longer after school, right? Like, that's not what they're doing, right? It's teachers are in charge of keeping track and kind of cheerleading the kids, right? Is that what the teachers are being paid for? Because I think that we can't even really, okay, I'll back up for a minute. So what I said last time is, like, I'm doing the extended learning for kids who were 11th graders last year. So they're seniors this year and they need the credit to graduate. And those kids aren't even doing it. So I think that our kids who are like freshmen maybe and have it incomplete, so it doesn't even feel real yet. Like, I don't even know the answer, right? But I don't think that more money is bad. I think more money for teachers to have more time to do this is good. I don't know. Maybe I should stop talking because I'm in a scared place.
No, that's good feedback. I appreciate it.
If I could, I was just thinking that based on the teachers that are not that motivated to do this, is there a way to incentivize it more?
No, the Miss PR, the amount is set by the county, so we're stuck with the amount. It's dictated to us.
So do the teachers
per hour is what you're saying?
Do the teachers that are doing this currently, what do they say that they need? Are they saying they need anything, or is it really just trying to get the kids to participate?
Because I feel like if they have specific ideas,
for how to improve what they're doing, I'm just wondering if there's anything that we could get for them
to make it easier.
Well, and I think we're still limited as far as like how much we can get involved with that, because of the way we have to structure it is basically we hand the money over to the program, how it's set up right now, and they have to kind of go from there. The teachers I've talked to who are working on it, like, they're basically setting up contracts with students and then meeting with those students to complete a certain number of assignments to fulfill enough of it to get a credit for the class. And so, but in a lot of cases, the kids have 10, 11 assignments to do. And so they're, just making the contracts, at least at the beginning, we're taking them 4 hours per kid, like multiple hours per student. And they had, 20 or something that they were working with for multiple classes. So, I mean, I think for the ones who were doing it, they were very overwhelmed with the amount of work it was compared to what they were going to be compensated for. And I don't think they quite understood when they started it as to how it was going to work. So I feel like if we go back to them now when they're kind of getting overloaded and say, hey, you can do more hours, we can pay you for more hours, or we can get some other people in here to help you, that's going to kind of help them to get reinvigorated to actually kind of meet with these kids again and to stay with them and to kind of cheerlead them along to get the work done. That would be my hope, maybe idealized hope.
I mean, it seems to me this is a place that we could put some of that money. However, it translates to, probably is to be determined. But since we've got this $30,000, I feel like we should put some of it, in that pot so that, if they do come up with different methods or if they want to add teachers, that the money's there for them. But that's really just the non-teacher perspective of that. So
Yeah.
I don't envy those teachers at all. I know how horrible that's got to be for them.
So can I ask a question? This is Kirsten Ponick. Valerie, you were talking about edgenuity for the current seniors. So what, I mean, would that be a possible plan for all the other grades as well? And then we wouldn't need to bring on as many teachers because kids are really, edgenuity is self-guided for the most part, right?
Right,
So,
but what it is, like even what I do through Edgenuity, it's self-guided, but I reach out to the kids to get them to do more.
right.
So really that's where all of the effort is going. The kids are doing the work, and we have some kids who were only missing a few assignments, right? And that's why they were incomplete, and they were able to do a contract with their teacher to do fewer assignments than what's in Edgenuity. So
Right.
it's less work.
So it's
for the
personalized,
students.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Edgenuity is great, but it's still, the kids have to get on and do it.
Right.
And that's where that disconnect is. And I think, so the idea that we talked about last week with having kind of like a homework hotline for student, that I guess the county said no to, which is understandable. But I don't even know, like at this point, I don't even know, I don't even know.
Yeah. I mean,
and usually I know, and I don't even know.
Edgenuity would be a great resource to help some of those kids get across the finish line, but
they have to, like, for example, last week we were dropping kids by February 16th, and I had to reach out to graduation coaches to say, please have them log in. That's all they had to do. They hadn't even logged in Edgenuity yet to be able to stay in the incomplete program. That's all we were looking for. And there were still 4 who didn't. And they're from other schools. These aren't all Roswell students. These are students across the county.
Yeah.
So that's where we are.
So I'm sorry, go on.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and I've had 3 kids withdraw from school altogether. So we're really starting to hit that place where kids feel hopeless. And like, I had a kid who was still a 9th grader. Like, so it's big.
Let me ask the question. So if we put money in the budget, if we allocate whatever amount that we're going to allocate, would that give you, Dr. Shaw, the opportunity and some leverage to say we have more money to have more teachers? Or I'm not sure if I missed the point about the 8 teachers that you have, if they would work more. I can't even imagine what that looks like, but having money in a bucket.
Yeah, no, I can actually, we can do that. We can say, listen, if you're willing to put the time in and you're getting the response, which is, some of what Val mentioned she's struggling with, then I can certainly, Ms. Ponder, who's in charge of running this program, among others, for recovery, we had this conversation, and I said, look, the governance council is willing to put some money in. Do you think that, and she seemed to think that we could get it spent, not $30,000, but if we put a few thousand, I think we could, because maybe that's where I heard it, that the kids are there and that they're coming. There's just X amount of hours in a day.
So I want to throw out another idea too, because I just wrote a mini grant here at Crabapple for virtual tutors through PTA, which they gave me $500. I'm so thankful. Through a Fulton County vetted tutor company that the tutor company works in a lot of after schools. But I don't know if that's something that we want to think about, like for those kids that we know will engage if they have some private coaching / mentors, academic in nature. I mean, with $500, I'm not going to get a whole lot of hours, and I'm really probably only going to be able to target 1 or 2 students, but still fulfilling a need there. So I don't know if that's something that we would want to think about for those kids that really want, those avid type kids that are motivated, but for whatever reason at home, they're, things are falling apart and they're not getting things done, getting the work done, but they have the cognitive ability and they have the drive, but there's something blocking them. I don't, just something to think about. And I'll be quiet now.
No, that's a great idea. I didn't think about it. We'd have to do some research. Just off the top of my head, I'm guessing, to your point, that there's some companies that Fulton County has approved. And I don't know what the cost would be. I don't know how much you get for 500, 1,000, 5,000.
Well, I know the company that I'm going to use is called the Tutor Shop, and it's going to give me a little more than 8 hours for $500, but I can get creative with it. And if they get enough business, maybe they would be willing to make a deal. I don't know, And
So how are you going to select the kids? Are you going to go through the council? That was my first thought.
I mean, as the graduation coach over here, I kind of have an idea of the one student that I'm going to target. And in my brain, I've kind of whittled it down to 8th grade math just because. So, I mean, I have in my mind how I want to work it, but I know, your teachers over at Roswell, Dr. Shaw, would have even if we're talking about 10 or 15 kids and maybe it's seniors, I don't know. I tend to go too big in my ideas, and then I have a hard time whittling things down to bring them to fruition. So I don't know.
It seems like a great idea. It really does. And I'm really thinking about those kids who are struggling. They're at home, they're working.
And the Tutor Shop has certified teachers. So,
cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't help us today because I know we have to make a decision. I need to do a little groundwork. My first thought is ask the counselors how many kids they think would benefit. But I love the idea. I think that's great. Thanks for sharing it. But we'll see.
May I make a comment here? So Ms. Ponick, you make a very good point in going back to the company and negotiating for better rates if you bring along Roswell High School. When the seed fund was the seed fund, when it was the seed fund long ago, we would ask principals, when we as the foundation heard that there were similar projects, we would ask principals to work with the companies to see if they could get a better rate. So I think that's a great idea.
I have a thought. Coming from a former school counselor in a high school where I had a lot of kids who had a lot of challenges. And what I heard somebody say, I think it was Laura, say, one, the teachers are asked to do a lot of things outside of actually helping them with the actual work that they need to finish. So like doing all the paperwork and the contract, could we provide funds for maybe a counselor or whoever to do those contracts, make a list of what they need to do, make a list of what they need to finish or whatever the contract looks like, and have that for the teachers so they're not spending 3-4 hours doing that. I don't know if that's possible.
I think that's what those 8 teachers are really doing. They're the ones who are meeting with the student, they're meeting with the actual teacher for the class that the kid had last semester and writing those contracts and saying, okay, are you going to complete this assignment? When you turn it into that teacher, what is the grade? And they're kind of those 8 teachers that the money would pay for are the ones who are doing that.
Okay, so, but I'm thinking the teachers would be, from my experience, the teachers would be somebody in a previous meeting said that the kids respond very well to people who they trust, who they're familiar with. So in my experience, I have sat with kids who had to meet that graduation deadline on the day of the graduation deadline. I said, okay, listen, you need to pass PE, so let's do this assignment, and you're going to sit here in my office, and we're going to do this, and you're going to just do this. And I sat there. I remember that girl. I don't remember her name, but we sat there till 6 o'clock. I had to go home and get ready for graduation, and I was like, no, guess who's not going to graduation? Me or you, So and she sat there and she did, and she graduated that day. But to have the teachers, because the kids trust them, do that part. I don't know if the kids are coming in for this extended learning, if they're able to in little pockets of kids to get them to actually do the work. To to do the work. The teachers get them to do the work, help them if they need help, blah, 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 blah. But all the paperwork stuff and to get a list of what they need to get done and the contracts and all that stuff can be done by somebody else besides the teachers, because the teachers need to help them do the actual work and sit there in front of that computer and say, hey, we're going to sit here together, but you're going to do this work. You know, I think that might be a better use of their 3.5 hours. I don't know.
The problem we had is that that's what we wanted to pay the teachers for, and that's what HR wouldn't allow us to just go directly to the teachers and pay them. So that's why we're kind of limited to having to go through this extended learning program in order to pay anyone to work with these kids. And it needs to all be organized through there because it's already been set up through the county, and there's, I guess, payroll reasons or whatever other reasons that it has to go through that group of teachers.
That's
so I guess the question
but are they helping them do the work, like complete the assignments? Because that's what they need to do to get these grades, right? Mm-hmm. Not doing this paperwork.
Right.
Sure. And so the hope is that if we can get them more hours or get them more teachers, is that we'll have more people to be able to do that, and it's not just an administrative contract meeting encouraging like that type of thing. That either we can start to pay some of the teachers who are working with those students to actually complete the assignments, or we can extend what the 8 teachers who are currently there are able to do.
I can imagine as a teacher not being that excited about it if I'm coming in as a teacher who has a heart for teaching and I'm doing the paperwork part and not getting them to actually complete the assignments. That's, I guess, what I'm saying.
Can I throw this out there? And you know, it sounds like we got some good ideas, but we need some information. You know, I'd be willing to get some of these questions answered. Specifically, Dr. Williams, how much time are the teachers spending on the payroll and paperwork part of it versus actually teaching? The tutoring idea, I can get some more information on that. I'm not a voting member, so I can't propose anything officially, but would it be possible to maybe table this? I know we're up against it. Maybe give us a week and come back, and I can share with you what I find out, and then we can maybe actually just come together for a few minutes and have a discussion and a vote. I mean, I'm just listening, and it seems like there's still a lot of questions. And really what I probably need to do is grab Ms. Ponder, she's had her hands in this much more than I have, and she could probably, Dr. Williams, the questions you're asking, she could probably give you a more definitive answer. But I also know we're under a timeline, so I mean, it's up to the council. I'm fine with doing a little homework and maybe reconvening in about a week, but I'll leave it up to you guys. That's just an idea.
I think that's a great idea. And I don't know, this could be kind of off the wall thinking, but I know since everything has to go through the extended learning budget, if we're using our teachers, if maybe there's a way, if there is another budget or, you know, bucket from somewhere, to perhaps play around with, you know, from another area, making it, you know, maybe incentivizing getting more teachers to join this. I don't know if that's doable or even something that we should even think about, but, you know, money from different buckets could, I don't know if there's any flexibility with that.
Like even if Dr. Shaw can't pull money from one of his magical buckets, maybe PTA or something could incentivize teachers
to find, you know, grant money or something so that we can incentivize these teachers, because Lord knows it's a hard job.
Is there any PTA mini grant money left anywhere? Does anybody know that?
I don't know.
But that could be something we find out this week as well, to see, you know, just to brighten, you know, to make people a little bit more interested and or motivated to continue. If we're, you know, hopefully we can get additional people to join in and perhaps do some of that paperwork. But, you know, just sort of looking, since we've got this $30,000, even if we could propose something to supplement that. I don't know if that's doable at all, but I feel like we need to help these teachers out, because the teachers are really the ones helping the students. And if we can get them, you know, some additional resource of some kind, that might.
Right, because you think like right now, I'm paying for a math tutor $60 an hour. No, sorry, $75 an hour for a math tutor. So if teachers are making like 25 from the extended learning funds or whatever, which I think is about what it is, is it about 25 an hour roughly?
28, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, I mean, yeah, I mean, who knows if it's legal or if it can happen,
Well-
but I do think that if teachers thought, okay, if I work for 2 hours a week and help a child in science and I'm going to make $75 an hour, I do think that that would sweeten the pot for them.
I think that, I mean, I don't know how we can do that, but if, you know, if we've got this 30,000 and we still have 15 left after going through some of this, you know, if there is a way to create some kind of a tutoring program within that, I don't know, but I think that we're all sort of thinking the same thing. How do we help these teachers?
I mean, I think we have a lot of ideas, but every time we've tried to pay the teachers directly is when we're running into the roadblocks from the county. And so I think we'd be better off trying to figure out how to work within the extended learning program. And I'm not sure that even then we'd be allowed to pay more or, you know, things like that. I think we'll be able to cover more people, but it doesn't sound like it's something that we're going to be able to pay more money or that type of aspect. But I do think maybe it's a good idea. I mean, as long as we can follow up and have another meeting, because I do feel like this is something that probably needs to be voted on pretty soon because it's money that needs to be used in this school year. So if you guys are okay with coming back in a week,
I'm available next week. Yeah.
if we can get more information and coming back to this idea of, you know, where can we go with this money? We do have we do have one application from Mr. Moon for some AV equipment that he wants. And so I don't know if we want to go ahead and vote on that or if we want to kind of wait and figure out how much money we have. What do you guys think?
I think that since we only have one request from the entire school, it's only 35, almost, you know, $3,600, that we consider it so that Mr. Moon can move on. And then, you know, he was early on in submitting that. I know he received a mini grant, confirmed that from PTA, so he was able to get one of the monitors funded. And so now he's asking for less than he was asking for originally, because I think it was like 5,500 maybe. But I think it would be great if you all consider funding him and allowing him to order his equipment.
I agree.
I agree with that. Do we think that the teachers, since we've only got this one application, do we think that that's because the teachers don't need anything or because they don't have time to think about this?
Probably more of the second. And don't have time to put anything together as far as figuring out what they need, or even if they had some great idea, having the time or energy to actually try and implement it. Here is, by the way, the proposal from Mr. Moon. And basically he's looking for some TV to use as large projectors with better quality for some of these special apps that he wants to use for band. So that's the cost breakdown that he sent to us. And I guess the idea is too that it would allow them to use both their lobby and their classroom as instructional spaces. So that's part of it too, is to expand his area for instructional space.
And I liked that he offered, you know, suggestions for how the whole school could use it also.
Yes. Because, and I probably should pull up, we had that charter dollars kind of rubric at the beginning of the year. And that was one of the things that was mentioned, is like how many people are going to be able to use this and for how long. And so this is something that I think would fit, you know, pretty well into both of those areas. So,
I think we should
go for it. Okay. Well, then, do we have a motion to approve this application for $3,500+ for Mr. Moon to buy his AV equipment?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve.
Second. Oh, sorry. You can add.
Okay.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay. So Darlene, and then a second from Meredith.
Yes.
And so let's vote on it then. And do we have anyone against this vote? Okay, then the motion passes and we have approved 3582.98 for Mr. Moon. So let me.
Laura, Miss Hunter, how does that work? So do I do anything or?
Well, first we have to fill out a form, but we need to do that for the reimbursing as well. And then I believe you and Verenda will just need to notify him that that's been approved, and he'll work with Verenda to go ahead and order it.
Well, he'll be happy.
Yeah, he should be happy, especially because he sent it in, I think, 3 months ago or 2 months ago. Okay, so then if I go back to our agenda and see where we are, I think that'll wrap up for now our seed fund discussion, and we can come back to some of this in that meeting that we're going to add, and we can discuss that more in a minute, as far as in a couple of weeks. So if we look at our agenda, then we have voted on spending on at least 2 proposals. So Dr. Shaw, do you want to go back to your mission and vision presentation, or should we move on? I haven't shared this, but is Dr. Shaw still there?
I was muted. I said some great
okay.
things that you missed. So no, I certainly can. So, all right, that is the wrong thing. That is the budget. We've done that. Nope, that's what I want right there. All right, so I sent you all an email. Basically, I'm going to go through the why, but we sent out a survey about mission and vision. And, you know, I guess officially, technically, that's not a purview of the Governance Council, but it really is, in the sense that we have a great representation of our community. We have amazing folks on here with great experience. So I wanted to go through the why and kind of the next steps. And I will go relatively quickly because I know we're running out of time, and you've been exceptionally patient with all of this, and nobody wants to listen to me talk that long. So what we're talking about is, and Val kind of hit on it a second ago, about what's going to happen after the pandemic. And a lot of this is the assumption that next fall that we don't have the remote learning option. Now, let me preface this by saying I don't have any information anybody else has. I know the superintendent has said publicly that we got to get our kids back in school. I think we can all agree with that. So that's kind of the presumption to this. But one of the interesting things here, most of you, I think, are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it works pretty simple. Before you can do safety, people need to have their physiological needs met, right? Before you can get to belonging and love, you need to have your safety needs met. And a lot of time at school, we're aiming for the top of this pyramid. We're looking at self-actualization. We're looking at education, creativity. And it's interesting, as I've thought about where we are as a school, that a lot of our students and staff at school are at the bottom of this pyramid. They're concerned about their safety. They're concerned about, are they okay at school? And I think you see it manifest itself in different ways. So I want to talk a little bit about where we are, and this is a reality. Now, it's not everybody, but it's the reason that half of our kids are on remote learning is there's a concern about, are they safe at school? The couple other things, I found an article from the American Academy of Pediatrics that was pretty clear, and I won't read this to you, but with kids being out of school, they definitely, there's some academic loss. Our children with disabilities are struggling. I think our special ed teachers would tell you that they're struggling to meet the needs of our kids with IEPs. Our kids who have food security issues, they rely on a good meal. And today is a Wednesday, so our cafeteria staff was out in the busport handing out meals, which I love. And also, a lot of times the school is the place where the kids, we find out that there's a problem in the home. So that all of these things that go back to just some basic safety functions that we tell our kids in many different ways, we love them and we care about them, those aren't happening right now. So that's kind of the environment. And when Val said so clearly a second ago, the next 3 years are going to be rough. I think this is some of what the conversation is all of these things with our kids are not being met. They don't feel safe. Our staff in some ways don't feel safe. So we have to think about life after the pandemic. A couple other things. I think next year, it's important to note that we'll have 2 full classes who have never experienced a full day, a regular day at Roswell High School. we talk a lot about our culture and what we believe and how our kids behave and our staff does this and the teachers know to do that. Well, a lot of that is gone. I mean, it's not going to be there. So we have to reteach it. We have to think about that. We have to come back to the question of what do we believe? Why do we believe it? How do what we believe as professionals align to how we interact with each other? Next year will be year 5 for me. And in the 5 years I've been here, I don't think we've ever really had a conversation about our mission statement. And before we do anything else, before we talk about safety, before we talk about policies, we have to come to some agreement or some discussion about why we turn the lights on every day. Why are we here? Why are we doing this work? And that starts with a mission statement. And that's why we put the survey out. So I'm not going to say it's doom and gloom. I'm saying we have to be, as the leaders, we have to be very cognizant of where our folks are, where our kids are, and what the challenges are when we come back in the fall. Again, assuming that our kids are back in the building. This is something that I talk about quite a bit, especially with the leadership team, is, when you look at our expectations, what are negotiable and what are non-negotiable? Do we understand that as a community, as a school? I'll just throw it out there because it's like always a topic of conversation. Where does dress code fall in this? Where does our recovery policy fall in this? Where does our beliefs about grading? Where does our beliefs about the importance of in education? What's non-negotiable? What's negotiable? And I have what I think is in the box, but that doesn't mean it's what the organization thinks. So again, as we start talking about restarting school, for lack of a better way of saying, as we review and reassess and reaffirm, what in our mind goes in that non-negotiable box, and do we all agree with that? So what is a mission statement, right? This is some of the work we've already started. A mission statement is quite simply why you're here, why you turn the lights on, why you exist, what is the common goal, right? It's not vision statements or value statements. Those come later and they're crucially important. But first you have to say, why do we exist? And some of these are very familiar. They're very simple, right? I think Google does a whole lot more than this when you talk about what they do every day, but why they exist is to organize the world's information and make it universally acceptable. Starbucks, well, they're just a coffee company, right? Yeah, but they see their mission as to inspire and nurture the human spirit. And Fulton County's educate every student to be a responsible, productive citizen. And again, as a staff, as a community, as a leadership team, as a governance council, as a PTSA, we've never had the conversation in the time that I've been here about this. What do we believe and why do we believe it? So our mission statement that we've been existing on is achieving excellence, honoring traditions, building community. And one of the things that we did is, this is the work we've already done. We've begun the process of examining the mission statement. So I can talk more about that. But we did put out a survey. We had 248 responses, and I've broken it down. A 1 was, I don't agree with this at all. A 4 was, yes, I agree with this. And the survey had 3 questions. Does the RHS mission statement explain why our school exists? Does it explain what we do? Does it encapsulate our core values? So, this is from all responders, right? Not bad, actually, if you're looking at survey results. So again, 4 is, yes, I agree. This is absolutely on point. 1 is, I don't agree with this at all. So when you break it down, we had 60 students who took it, which is pretty cool, actually. I'm glad they did. So you can see that they're over 3. We had 45 staff took it. It was a little lower, right? You're looking now, you went from the mid 3s to the mid 2s. And then you had the parent response, which, again, you jump back up into the mid 3s. So we had 140 parents, again, which I appreciate them doing that. It was pretty quick and pretty painless. And there'll be some more to come, of course. But the other thing that was interesting was the qualitative data. There was a text box on the survey that said, explain why you answered like you did. And here's 3 things that jumped out at us. So one is, why is traditions included? Is traditions our mission? It's important, it's a value, it's something that we appreciate. But it was interesting how many people said, I don't think honoring traditions is a mission. I don't think it's why we're here, which I thought was important and will guide some of our work going forward. The other one is, somewhere in our mission statement should be achievement in education. Which kind of popped really quick for a lot of the responses across the board. And this is a mix. This is students, staff, and parents. So I thought was pretty interesting. And one of them said, put it in Spanish. Totally think that's awesome. So, and then the last one was something that came up that honestly made me go, ooh, but there was some comments about how we're not living up to this mission statement. Again, maybe that's because we haven't talked about it, discussed it, made it a focus point. But my first problem is people don't follow this statement. I don't believe this mission reflects who we are. So those are the three things that came out of this. Why is traditions included? Where's the mention of education? And we're not living up to the goal that we set for ourselves. So what do we do moving forward? Well, what we do is, I think it'd be best to talk through this very briefly, and then I'm done. And this is where the Governance Council definitely falls into this, is what we're going to do as an administrative and leadership when I'm department chairs is put together some mission statements. Now, when I did this in the past, we were sitting in a big room and we had sticky notes and, you know, putting them on boards and parking lots, but we can't do that for obvious reasons now. So we can do it electronically, put together some mission and vision statements, or mission statements, excuse me. Let the community, the Governance Council, PTSA, our students look at them, give us some feedback, and then work through that with our leadership team, and then come up with one that we think really does encapsulate those things that are non-negotiable in the box. Then once we have that done, we have to talk about our value statements. Then the real work is for us to, and the next slide points this out a little better, is to start looking at what we do every day, right? If we believe that achievement is important, does our credit repair policy support that? Does our tardy policy support that? Our exemption policy, we're going to have to revisit that anyway because we're no longer allowed to use attendance. So what about our dress code? Is that something that is non-negotiable? Does it reflect what we believe as a school? Even parking, it's a big deal around here. Does how we do parking reflect what we believe as a school? So this is a very rough timeline. Well, that's the value statement work. Sorry, my timeline's next. So a very rough timeline. We've already started a lot of this. We surveyed for the current mission and vision, presenting the leadership results, which I'm doing right now, if needed, right? I think in my mind, and I think in talking to the admin, and I'm doing this with department chairs tomorrow, I think some of the feedback is, yeah, we do need to take a step back and look and reevaluate our mission statement. Then taking that mission statement, develop our value statements, get into the work in late March and into April, May, and June. So use the rest of the semester, you know, to really look at our policies and does what we do every day align to what we believe. So, and listen, I've gotten some pushback from some staff. Why are we doing this? This is not the right time. And it's valued and it's valid. And I understand everybody's under the stress. But if we don't do this now, when are we going to do it? Are we going to do it when kids are back in the building and we're trying to figure out why nobody's following the rules and nobody understands what they're supposed to do and the teachers aren't doing lesson plans and how come? And because then we're really into it. I think, you know, sometimes as a leader, and all of you know this, you have to take people where maybe they're not ready to go, but it's where they need to be. And I really, to my core, believe that we need to do this work now to get ready for next fall so we can, you know, we're going to have a lot of kids in our building who have never seen us in action. And when we talk about what we value as an RHS student, they have not experienced that. So that is kind of where we are. That's the work we're doing. Of course, this will be posted. It's part of the information that we present. So I will share a lot of this with the community. I'm going to talk through this with department chairs tomorrow. But that email I sent you was just explaining, hey, listen, we started this work, but I wanted to bring our governance council up to speed. And then, like I said, the next thing is to get some groups together. We have a PBIS team that actually Lindsay Davis serves on. We already started some of this conversation about our rules and how we approach kids and how we define what our expectations are. Student councils are going to be a part of this, PTSA. And believe it or not, and this is the last point I'll make, the Back to School Committee already has done a lot of this work. They're already set up when we did the plans throughout this year to reopen school in our different phases. So, you know, I think it's important work. I think it matters. I think we need to do it to get ready for what's coming ahead, as Val said, the next 3 years. So that's what I wanted to talk through with y'all and just kind of show you where my mind was at. And with that, I will stop, and I'm open and need any feedback, suggestions, or anything else that we can talk about.
I think to go on top of what you said about, you know, if not now, when, because truly, I was thinking when we had the fire drill the other day, I was like, you know, as hard as everything is this year, there are parts of it that are a little bit easier, like fewer kids that you take outside on the fire drill, right? And so that's when it kind of occurred to me that in the next 3 years, everything is going to come rushing back tenfold because we'll also be catching up. So I do think that really having a clear picture of what next year is going to be like, especially since everything has been so unsure for so long, that's important.
Yep, and that's really my point, Val, is as I've kind of reverse engineered this, here's where we want to
Yeah.
be. Where do we start? And I think
Yeah.
I still believe it starts with what do we believe as a community about education, about our kids, about why we exist. And then if everything flows from that, everybody won't agree, but at least we have a common starting point.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the survey results? Did it surprise anybody? Were you like, wow, I agree, I disagree, I caught me off guard, like the one about not living up to our mission statement. That got me a little bit right here. But any thoughts or anything that people want to share about the survey results?
This is my opinion on the survey results. I think that people have had more time to be on social media during the pandemic and more time to sit back and be judgy. And so they're like, yeah, I'm really not that pleased with. That's what I think.
Okay.
I could be
I was
wrong.
just going to ask is that a pretty standard response percentage of parents that respond?
No, it's higher. It's higher. And one of the reasons I think it's higher is because I sent it out in my weekly mail, but then I sent it out separately. So parents got it as a separate email, and kids did as well. So it's higher, even for the staff. It's higher than we normally get on a survey. To have and I'm doing it from memory, I apologize, 145 parents and 60 kids. And some of the kids responded, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what a mission statement is, which I appreciate that too. But I know it's higher actually than, so you can hypothesize as to why. Maybe Val's right. People have more time to think about stuff. Maybe there's just a lot of concern and question across the board about what the school is doing. So I don't know, but yeah, it was higher. I guess what I'm asking is, am I on the right track with this, or is, I mean, I'm curious for your feedback as to, is this the work we need to be doing? Is this the wrong presentation? What do y'all think?
I think that it is definitely worth doing.
Okay.
I think it's important that we have something to kind of guide us, fall back on. It's sort of like with the governance council, what are we basing everything on? So I do think that it's necessary, whether or not the timing is right or will ever be right, but I do think that you're on the right track. I think that it's a necessary thing.
Gotcha. Good.
It's a good thing for kids to learn also,
And I would just say too, Dr. Shaw, like I get as a leader why you think this is important. And as a parent, I like it, but don't be too discouraged if the teachers aren't like going, woo, Dr. Shaw, like,
no. Well, that never happens. So
I'm sure that it does, but I just feel like, and I think you understand where their heads are, like it's a tough time.
They're in survival mode, and they're just trying to keep their head above water. And that's why, you want to get input, but I don't want it to be labor intensive. I don't want a 50-page survey that they have to, because they're not going to do it and it's not going to matter for them. But, again, I think that's what I said earlier. I do think if we wait till the fall, it's even going to be worse, because now they're going to be, they're going to be back to 30 kids in a room and the regular day and
discipline and behavior and
yes, absolutely. So I struggled with that. I really did. And one of our department chairs said the same thing. She said, you're not going to get a real quality product if you really expect every teacher to engage. So I hear what you're saying. I certainly do.
And real quick, I know that we're getting late on our time, but as far as the rest of that money that we have, the rest of that 30,000 or whatever it is there a way, how my gut is to, obviously we want to use it, but if I want to give whatever we can to the teachers, if we can, give them anything that will make their job a little easier right now. I don't know really what that looks like or how that translates to in spending dollars. But if we have that extra money, if there's a way, to give it to them in some form, and this is just a parent perspective, doing what they're doing this year is beyond what's written on the contract, so however we can do that, I would support whatever extra money going to them in some way, however we can make that work.
Well, let me just jump in, and I check to see if she's gone for the day, but the county caps what I can spend on teachers, right? So whether it's food or, get-togethers or gifts, and I'm almost 100% sure that cap would apply to governance council funds. But Verinda's not here, so I don't know if with flex funds you have more flexibility to do more for the teachers. But now instructional things, right? I can certainly buy microphones and monitors and things like that. But if you're talking about the fun stuff, which I love to do, like getting them food, giving them a meal,
Ice cream.
ice cream, yes, that I'm capped on what I can spend, to the point that even when we buy food for the teachers to go on their way to graduation, right, we give them a box lunch, that counts for that. So it's capped on what I can spend, and I'm guessing that the governance council funds would be a part of that, but I can ask.
Well, and I think something we said last time, Hannah kind of jumped in and said, you had to be careful. There's only certain things you can spend it on. So we would have to look and see as to exactly what we're allowed to even. I think she specifically mentioned no food, no, she said a couple of things like that. So we'd have to look into it.
I mean, a small thing off the top of my head that would help teachers is, and I saw that we bought some for Chiclana one year, are all of the Surface chargers. Like if there were a way, especially next year as the devices are older but we've moved to using devices more, so we keep using them next year, right? Because if I lend my charger to one more kid, like that could be the tipping point right there. So if there were more chargers, right? If every teacher could get 5 chargers per room, and we could figure out how to, zip tie them in so that they don't walk away with the kids, like just a little thing like that, that is what might keep our sanity. And I think that's something we could do.
I have an idea.
The one problem we had with that is we bought all those, and then the next year they changed the surfaces, and you couldn't use new surfaces.
Yeah. Then I just want zip ties. Is this being recorded? Wait.
I do actually have an idea about the chargers at our business. So we had an issue with chargers walking away. If anybody wants an idea, I have an idea, and the charger is there, and it works, and it's fine.
But even like the extension cords we bought one year, those were really helpful because I have those spread across my classroom.
Yep.
Because depending how you have the room set up, if however many people can plug in at once. And I'm lucky because I'm a science room, so there's chargers all around the room. But
that would be a sanity saver. Yeah.
And anything like that is what I mean. Anything that is extra that could make their lives easier, whether it's Clorox wipes or whatever it is, just those little things, however we can move things around, obviously within our limits that we're allowed to use. But every teacher I'm sure has a wish list, so
well, and I think maybe if we get to the point where we don't have any of these big funds to spend, that we try and kind of reopen that application process and say, okay, we're going to do this again, anything, whatever you can think of that'll help you, and then go from there. It would be an option, but we do need to move on with this. We got a couple of things we still have to discuss, so let me.
May I just throw one thing in very quickly, please?
Yep.
I'm wondering if the PTSA has funds that they could do some of this extra stuff with that we can't around food.
They do grants, because I had a science teacher show up at my door with an extra webcam that's fancier than others because he wrote a grant for the science department and I didn't even know about it. And so they've given out some money, and they bought one of the TVs for Mr. Moon and things like that. So they've had some money available as well. But again, you get to that point where you're so bogged down in everything, you don't even have time to stop and think about what would be helpful. And you don't even necessarily know what would help. And I think that's the issue too, is you see all these applications and then it's just like, I don't know right now. And then, by the time you think of something, the deadlines have passed. So that's kind of been one of the issues. But we do need to talk for a minute about Sgc elections, because the deadline to declare is Friday. And as of this point, we have no one who is declared for either our one parent or our one teacher elected positions. So, and part of that, I think, is we had a big gap between our meetings, and we just weren't meeting when the whole process started. And so it kind of fell through the gaps, and that's partly my fault. I probably should have followed up on it. But we're at the point where we kind of just need whatever last minute things you can think of to get somebody to declare for both the parent and the teacher positions. And we might be at that point where we just need to individually start reaching out to anyone we can think of who might be interested for next year. There's a form that they have to fill out on the school governance website that it needs to be done by Friday if they're interested. So does anyone have any other ideas of trying to reach out to the parents and the teachers to try and get some people?
And I have not actually. I know we got an email. I think Dr. Shaw sent something maybe this week about it. I was just going to say, if it was not this week, then maybe we get one more thing out in the email.
No, it was Tuesday.
was?
I can
Okay.
send it again, and kind of like the survey, I get more feedback sometimes when I send it separately and it's not buried and all that. So I may shoot that out tomorrow.
Yeah, to have something just about the SGC, and that way people don't overlook it.
And
But
Dr. Shaw, do you know if we've gotten it on the school social media or what we need to do for that as well?
I'm pretty sure. Well, I haven't looked at any of it, so I don't know. My guess is no, but if I reach out to Betsy, she'll do it.
Okay, if we could get that done as well, that might help. But I would say otherwise, if everyone could just start reaching out to anyone they can think of, that might actually be more effective to individually start saying, hey, are you interested in this? This is what you need to do, et cetera. So if you have any questions, you can refer them to me or probably Dr. Shaw, and we can kind of follow up. But we definitely need to try and get a last minute push for that, because
I
the
just texted
latest
5 moms, so.
Is it just the position?
Yeah, so we need one parent and one teacher, and as of right now, no one has declared. So I think Hannah just sent out those numbers. I don't know if everyone gets those updates from her or if I'm just getting those, but
I got it. I think we all get it.
yeah, so yeah, and she just keeps saying we have no other option. So whenever I ask, well, what happens if no one declares? She's like, it's not an option. It's not an option. So I have no idea what happens if no one does. So please.
It's like the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to.
It has to happen. That's all we know. So any other thoughts about election? Okay, then I know we've kind of spent the whole meeting doing this, but Ms. Trigg, do we have any updates for the Budget and Finance Committee?
I think we've covered it all. Thank you.
Should I don't know who this is who's calling in. I guess I will admit them. Hopefully it's not a random bomber or whatever those people who like to come in and make a fuss. And so same with do we have a communications committee update?
I actually, and I have to apologize, I've missed the last 2 meetings. We moved and we all got COVID in my house. So I'm sorry that I've been, yeah, we were all fine though. Everybody got it and everybody made it through.
Good.
Knock on wood. But so I really don't have an update on my end, but I know certainly it probably would have been helpful if I was at the last one and we could have perhaps drummed up some communication for this election.
Well, let me jump in real fast, because I actually had a meeting this morning with Betsy and Pam and crew, and they are putting together a pretty comprehensive report of everything they've done in the last year, particularly for this group. So Betsy apologized that it wasn't ready for today, but that's coming. So that'll probably help.
Okay.
Great.
And I would just say this is a random thought that I've had in the last couple of weeks, is that when we set up this calendar for next year, I know why we originally set up only one in December and then one early, or I think we did November, then early January, and then this February meeting, but I think we missed too much time. And we kind of missed the window of elections and trying to get set up with elections and some of this other seed funds. So I would just make the recommendation for whenever the calendar is set for next year, that we kind of go back to maybe a more regular once a month. I know that December meeting is tough, but it's been to do that really early January meeting and then have nothing until now has been probably even more of a problem. So just if someone will make a note for that since I'll be gone, but I do think it needs to either be later in January and less of a gap there, or go ahead and meet December, later January and later February probably. But, okay.
I have
Well,
a
then,
suggestion about, this is just, when you were talking about, like the teachers are kind of overwhelmed as far as trying to dedicate time to doing the applications for money. Maybe with communications or Dr. Shar, whoever sends out these emails, maybe this year, I mean, some teachers may not be here next year, but most of them will, send out saying next year we'll be voting or, you know, accepting applications in the fall. Start thinking about things that you might have needed this year that, you know, just give them some time and start making a list, like prompting them to make a list. Like I start my Christmas list like in June, like I do. So, you know, literally just making a list and making them aware that they should be thinking about things that they might need that they don't think about, like extension cords and whatever the things that we had mentioned, so that they'll be ready when we're ready to hit the ground, when you guys are ready to hit the ground next year.
And that could be something that, you know, from the communications committee, that we come up with some kind of a survey, you know, a little bit ahead of time to send out to teachers. You know, we've got this opportunity out there, you know, and shoot them a survey or some kind of notification like that might get them thinking, because I just worry that they didn't do it because they don't have time to do it, you know.
And you guys are saying next year is might be more overwhelming because we might be in a more normal environment. So if they didn't have time this year, imagine next year is going to be a little bit more stressful. So just start making that Christmas list, you know? What do you think you need? What do you think you might need so you have it ready?
So, Dr. Williams, when do I tell you what I want for Christmas? That's what I got out of it.
Now, I write it all down. I will send it to you. Now, Amazon Prime Day is in July, okay?
There you go. So I'm sorry, I don't want to, and I actually have to get going to North Gwinnett, but do we want to set a time for that meeting where we kind of provide more information about the options, or how do you want to do that, Laura? Do you want to set the time date now?
Just gonna say that. So are we good with meeting next Wednesday, the 3rd? All we really need to discuss is more of the seed funds and getting some more information and possibly voting on the spending of extended learning or something else. So Dr. Shaw, is that enough time to get some more information, you think?
It is. I'll see if Ms. Ponder can join us, and we have to do the same thing we would do for any meeting. We got to post it, you know, do an agenda, all that stuff. So I can, if you want to do an agenda, probably 2 items, and then I'll get the team set up and get it on the website.
Okay. So I will set an agenda and we'll try and get that up tomorrow so that we could go ahead and, does anyone remember what the official rule is as far as how much time we have to announce a meeting, or?
I think it's 24 hours.
Is it?
I think so. Is it not? Or is it a week? I don't know.
I thought it was 2 days, but like if it changed, it was 24 hours.
Oh, okay. You might be right. You're doing. Where's Hannah when you need her? Yeah, she's not there. Okay.
Yeah, I'll double check with her, but I would think a week would be okay. So
Yep.
We will plan on our next meeting on March 3rd, just to discuss the seed funds. Then we'll have our full March meeting at the end of the month as well. Okay. Well, then, if there's nothing else to discuss, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn.
Wait a second.
I gotta go to our track meet. Our kids are running at Milton. My son's running. I gotta go.
Okay, do we have a second?
That motion. I'll second.
Who seconded?
Meredith.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Anyone against the vote to adjourn the meeting? Okay, then
I want to stay and talk. I'm only kidding.
Yeah, you got to get out of here too. So, okay, well then.
All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate y'all. Thanks so much.
Meeting.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye. Thanks, guys.